press conference is basically when multiple forms of media get together to interview someone who's newsworthy or someone, I guess, who we want to find out something about. In football terms, that may be a player, it may be a coach from a team, it may be someone who's in the news, an administrator or something along those lines. Being prepared is pretty important. It's really good to know some background on your subject. If it's a player, how many goals have they scored this season, how well have they been playing, how old they are, previous clubs. Perhaps they're coming up against a club that they've played for before. These are things that are very important to know before the press conference starts because they give you ammunition for the questions that you want to ask. In Australia, again, we tend to be a little more informal with these sort of things. Normally, we know roughly who the media outlets are and the questions are just asked directly to the talent. There's not usually an order to these sort of things. They often take care of themselves. There's usually the talent answers one question, the question finishes, there's a little bit of a lull, someone else will ask another question. And often with a press conference, there's a natural flow to it. If the person being interviewed follows a certain topic, says something that needs expanding on, the next journalist or the same journalist will ask a question following on from that question. So it is very important to listen to what the talent is actually saying before you ask your next question. The absolute key in asking questions in a press conference is ask the questions that people want to know. It's pretty simple. What do you want to know about the person who's being interviewed? And usually what you want to know about the person being interviewed is what everyone else wants to know about the person being interviewed. That is very important. It's a great skill, and often it is actually overlooked by a lot of people, that what the public want to know about a person should be the top priority in your head when you are asking questions. The reality is you are trying to do a job. The person answering the questions is trying to do a job too, and it's always very important to maintain a level of professionalism. When it comes to other journalists, try not to ask questions over the top of other journalists. That's a little bit of a skill in itself, but most of the time if you do watch a press conference, you'll find it doesn't happen. The reason being because most of the journalists have been to a lot of press conferences and they know the right time to ask a question. There's usually a little bit of a lull in the conversation, a little bit of a lull in the answer, or the talent finishes their answer and then the person asks. So it's pretty important not to try and cut off other journalists or cut off the talent while they're asking questions. Ask with a clear voice. Make sure that you pronounce everything properly so there's no grey area, so the person that you're asking the question to understands what you're saying, understands the context of your question, and understands exactly what it is that you want to know. That's pretty important.
The player's role at a press conference is to answer the media's questions as truthfully as possible and give the fans feedback about what they've done on the field and off the field.
A player's role at a press conference is to make sure that they're respectful of their teammates, that they answer as honest as they can without giving any negativity to their team, to their coach, to the game, to the referees.
A player should prepare for a press conference by kind of thinking about questions that they could be asked.
A player should prepare for a press conference by learning what it takes to speak in front of the camera. You can do some practice.
A player should conduct themselves at a press conference with the values of the club in mind and what they represent by being part of that club.
No trash talking, no sledging, nothing like that. Be respectful, carry yourself with pride.
The hardest part of answering a question at the press conference is not knowing what to answer, not knowing what the question is, and just not being ready.
The difficult part about answering questions at a press conference is sometimes you're asked questions that you really don't want to answer, sometimes questions that make you a little emotional, and sometimes you're asked questions that you really just don't know the answer to.
The most difficult part of answering questions at a press conference is maybe when the tensions are a little bit high and the emotional level is a little bit high, making sure that you don't speak out of turn and without thinking. That can cause you a little bit of trouble.
You show respect to the media at a press conference by trying to answer all their questions and doing so as honestly as possible.
You show respect to the media at a press conference by understanding that they're doing their job and we're doing our job as well, and kind of just having a mutual understanding. Sometimes they will ask you questions that make you a little uncomfortable, but at the same time they're doing their job, and as long as you show them a little respect, I think that they'll reciprocate that.
You show respect to the fans at a press conference by trying to be as informative as you can. giving them feedback on how the team's going and how you're going personally.
You show respect to the fans at a press conference by always mentioning how important it is for the club to have the fans at games. Myself personally, I love to play at home just simply because you have your fans chanting your name, win, lose, draw. They're always there, out in numbers, singing for you. So for me, it's always important to make sure they know how important it is for the team to have them there.
You show respect to the opposition at a press conference by not making any negative remarks about them and in fact saying something positive about them.
Basically no negativity. It's tough because it is the opposition, but at the end of the day, we're all footballers and we're all kind of striving towards a common dream.